Welcome back to HACR's Leadership Pipeline Program. We'd like to offer our thanks to the team at Target tuning in virtually to our program. Now, please welcome to the stage HACR's Director of Communications and Marketing, Andrea Orlando.
Hola, welcome back. Our next session is called Power Networking for Power Moves. Are you enjoying the program so far? Yes, I like that. All right, we're getting comfortable with each other, a little bit louder. How about the reception last night? Anybody go to the reception here? Yes. So, we ask that you post all of your amazing pictures using our hashtag HACR LPP 22. That's HACR LPP 22. And please tag us at HACR.org. If you post on Twitter or Instagram, your posts will appear on our social media wall. So how was lunch? Yeah, it was delicious, right? Maybe it was a little too good. So if you're feeling a little sleepy after a heavy lunch, we have a solution for you. We have a solution for that. It's our next speaker. He is no stranger to HACR. He delivers powerful messages to thousands of people every year, from entrepreneurs to corporate professionals to nonprofits and groups of all kinds. He's an amazing professional, an accomplished professional, executive business, life and success coach, and gifted communicator. He is known as a high-powered speaker and coach who inspires from the heart. His career trajectory includes 20-plus years of consulting experience as an executive with Accenture. He has served as Chief Technology Officer for a commercial real estate company, leading the North America diversity recruiting efforts for a Fortune 500 consulting firm. So, please welcome to the stage founder of ExecuPath, Fernando Rosario.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. How's everyone doing today? Good? That doesn't sound like you're doing great. That sounds like you just had coffee and came out of a lunch. How are you doing today? Good? All right. Have you met everyone already or not? Yes? No? All right, the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to turn to your left and to your right and introduce yourself. Just do a quick introduction. Go ahead. There you go. I said quick. Okay, let's get back. Quick, quick, quick. All right, let's get back into action. Wow, I should have done that at the end. You back with me, everyone? Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Well, that introduction right there is taking longer than necessary. I'm going to start pointing people out. Let me introduce myself real quick. So, no secret, my name is Fernando Rosario. As I said, I am from a very small town in Puerto Rico called Aguadilla. Yeah? All right. And I'll tell you this, many years ago, which I'm not going to date myself, I figured that if I ever wanted to become an executive, I had to learn one skill. And that skill was playing golf. Have you heard that before? Which is why I titled today's topic, Who's Your Caddy? Don't worry. I figured I needed to play golf, so I hired myself, and this was in Orlando, Florida, a top golfer. He was a top golfer. And I bought the shoes, the pants, the belt, the shirt. If you saw me there, you would think, el próximo tigre de madera, for sure. On the third lesson, the instructor said, Fernando, you cannot play golf. True story. And I said, but I've already paid for about 10 lessons. And he said, I'll give you the money back. We're not doing this. We are not. And we didn't. He wouldn't take my money. There was no persuasion whatsoever. He's like, I value my sanity. I can't deal with you. You can't play golf. But I figure it's not the game of golf. So for those of you who think this is about golfing, it has nothing to do with golf. And the reason I titled this topic, Who's Your Caddy, is because I am very interested in strategic relationships. Now, mind you, I did not say networking. I'm not a big fan of the word networking because we're not going to work. I am a big fan of strategic relationships. The ones that you have identified, the ones that you know are going to make an impact in your career. So Fernando, what does that have to do with the title, Who's Your Caddy? Because in the game of golf, which I've already said I know nothing about when it comes to playing, in the game of golf, we think that caddies are there to carry your clubs. And you could not be more wrong. Caddies know more about the game of golf than the actual player. They have seen the course many times. They know about club selection, they know about your style, they know about your swing, they know about everything in detail about the game. So I started thinking, how about we get some executive caddies? How about we get some life caddies? So by the end of today, what I want to make sure is that in your piece of paper, you start taking notes on who are the caddies in your life. Now, not to carry your luggage. We're going to cover this information in a second. Hopefully this works. Yes, because on the golf course, everything is exposed. Your manners, your ethics, your knowledge of the game, and your personal habits. Just the same way that at work, people tend to pay attention to how you behave, what your value system is. How do you interact with others? And for you to be able to gather the strategic network that you need, you better start identifying some individuals that are going to be key to your development. Are you with me so far? Okay, so here's the thing. As John Maxwell would say, one is too small a number to achieve greatness. Say, I agree if you agree. Do you agree? No. See, you're not agreeing. You're saying, sort of. Do you agree? Yes or no? Like our parents used to say, dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. Yes? That is so true, because I am going to make a judgment call based on the people that surround you, whether you like it or not. And some of you are thinking, Fernando, that should not be the case. What's your question? That's how it's going to be. And some individuals are going to look at you from afar, and they're going to use your performance, your brand, your image, what you have delivered, and guess what? The caddies that are surrounding you to determine certain aspects of your career. So as of this moment, I want you to make sure that the people surrounding you will make or break your career. Fair enough? Okay. We may all have different goals. You may be thinking, Fernando, how do I climb the corporate ladder? How do I get a raise? How do I get a promotion? How do I transfer to a different location, different job? All of this could be a lot easier if you had the right people standing next to you. I've already said that. So here's a comparison. In the game of golf, you have advisors. They help you with club selection, course management. You have players. They have their own experiences, and they have a deep understanding of the course. By the way, I'm talking about the caddies. They are your friend because they grow with you as a player, and they keep you focused. They are also your peers because they have full knowledge of the game, and they play a really good game themselves. And they act as your coach because they understand your style, your strengths and limitations. Now let me flip this for a second. Can you see the similarities in your careers? Your career counselors, your role models, your trusted relationships, your team members, your executive coach, they all do the same thing if you just let them. But you have to let them. How many of you have actually asked for advice and then not listened to it? And you come up with all kinds of excuses. That's because, Fernando, you're not in my shoes. You don't understand the context. Somehow we always have excuses not to follow on the advice from somebody else. Okay. You need to build your caddy network before you need it. How many of you, raise your hands, know the 5 resources, the 5 individuals that you have to meet in 2023? Raise your hand. That's a very low number of individuals. You know what the problem with that is? Is that you're not being strategic about building your network. You're just letting them show up to your network. They may be good, they may be bad, but you're never going to know because you haven't set yourselves a goal for what strategic means. I am going to meet Marcela because she is the head of recruiting and she may be able to help me here, here, and here. I am going to meet Jose because Jose is the vice president of so and so. I learned this many years ago when I was aiming for my promotion. And I had a chance to meet the CEO of an organization. And I said, what do you think I should do? And he said, go ahead and write down the people that have an impact in your career. So I did. I wrote down the name of my manager, my manager's managers, right? The people surrounding me. He took a look at the page and he said, you clearly have no idea who impacts your career. None of them sit at the table when it comes to promotion. None of them. And I said, but wait a second. They provide my feedback. And he said, they may provide your feedback, but they do not sit at the table the day when we talk about you. So we rewrote the list. And once we rewrote the list, he had me put the reason for the new names in the list. Because this person sits at the table, this person makes the decisions about budget, so on and so forth. And then we went through an exercise of identifying my relationship with each of those individuals. To my surprise, I had no relationships with them. And he quickly said, this is why you would not get that promotion. Do you understand the value of a strategic network now? How important it is? Some of you are thinking, Fernando, if I put my head down and I work hard, I should be able to get what I want. Well, you would be wrong. Did you know that? Nobody has the time to just be walking around paying attention to what you're doing all day. Only things that become visible or individuals that talk about it get recognized. Sometimes they say the squeaky wheel gets the oil. Now, I know what you're thinking, Fernando, it shouldn't be that way. But I'm not here. I wasn't invited to talk to you about how it should be. I'm here to talk to you about how you should act until things are normal or the way you want them. Fair enough? Okay. Here's my definition of 3 individuals that you better have in your corner or you're wasting time. Number 1, a mentor. Number 2, a coach. And number 3, a sponsor. And you can have multiple of them. But I'm going to give you the definition of how I see it. A mentor talks to you. Keyword, to you. You know why? Because they have been there, done that, and their advice comes from a place of experience. Now, does that mean it's going to work for you? Maybe not. An extrovert mentor may give you advice to an introvert that, although it worked for them, may not work for you. It's as simple as that. It may not work for you. Is it good advice? Absolutely. Was it well intended? Absolutely. Can it get you in trouble? Probably. Have you ever paid attention to somebody giving advice to somebody else and you're thinking you're going to get that person in so much trouble? I've heard people say you need to walk into your supervisor's office and not say, demand that you want a raise. And I'm going, that may not work for you at all. A coach talks with you. Keyword, with you. I'm a coach. It's not what worked for me. It's what the resources that you have available that are going to make the difference. So a coach talks with you because we need to understand what makes you tick, your leadership style, your behaviors, your value system. So the advice comes from a place understanding who is going to execute. Not how I would do it. This is how you should do it. And last but not least, a sponsor talks about you. You may realize that many of you think you have one or more sponsors when all you have are mentors. You may have coaches. A sponsor has a vested interest in you. Doesn't mean they're your friends. Have you ever, well, not have you ever. Raise your hand if you have that family member or that friend that you love dearly, but you would never recommend for a job. You know who I'm talking about? See, are you a sponsor? You're not. It's the equivalent in corporate America or in any of your organizations. A sponsor says, I'm going to put my name next to yours because I am so confident that what you are about to do is going to make me look good. Did you realize that? It's not because they like you. It's because whatever you're about to do is going to position them in a better light. So you need to get yourself sponsors. You may not even know they're looking after you, but in certain meetings, somebody is going to say, well, Maria is the person that I think should go into succession planning. You may not know that. With this definition, how many of you clearly have a sponsor? Raise your hand. Clearly have a sponsor. And they will put their necks on the line for you, or so you think. Yes? Okay. Here's the challenge for all of you. Ask yourselves, would your sponsor tell it to your face if they're not going to support you in a closed-door meeting? Interesting, right? And that works because I should have started by saying, in every communication, when you're starting to develop your strategic network, you need to understand that you are going to encounter 3 levels of resistance. Number 1, I don't get it. I don't get what you're saying, Fernando. I know some of you are getting this, I'm getting this resistance from some of you. I don't get it, Fernando. Resistance level number 1. I don't get what you're saying, therefore I push back. That's logical. But if I pass to resistance level number 2, which is a bit more dangerous, is I don't like it, Fernando. I get what you're saying, I don't like it. You know what the difference? The difference is if I walk up to your office and I said, you are fired, do you get it? Oh, you get it. Do you like it? Not so much. Now, if you get past those 2 resistance levels, there's the 3rd one, which is more dangerous. You know what that is? I don't like you. I know some of you are thinking, Fernando, impossible. Everyone likes me. I am that person. No, some people don't like you. Here's the thing, they're not going to tell it to your face. And because they're not going to tell it to your face, they're going to disguise it as I don't like it or I don't get it. So now you're trying to solve a problem that you're never going to solve because at the end of the day, I just don't like you. Have you been in a project where you get what the project is about? You like what the project is about, but you're thinking, if it's with you, if you laugh, it's because you've been there. So going back to this topic, understand that you have to have these individuals at a minimum. Call it your personal board of directors, your knights of the shining armor, whatever the heck you want to call them. But have a list of individuals that are going to support and help you. Oh, here we go. A good caddy in the game of golf, and I'm going to speed up because I have little time. They watch the speed of takeaway, the hip movement, the shoulder dip, too much wrist action, everything that I did wrong with my instructor. He said, you cannot do any of these things. Much in the same way that in your organization, an executive caddy is going to watch out for your communication skills, your strategic relationships, the influence that you have, awareness, bad habits, work-life balance. These are the key individuals that are going to make sure you are moving in the right direction. Now, here's the problem with that. Some of us have the wrong executive caddies. Some of us ask for financial advice from someone who's broke. Have you done that? And what do? They tell, well, what you have to do is you have to diversify your portfolio. You need to shut up because you're going to get this person in trouble. Some of us ask for romantic advice from someone who is not in a relationship. Have you noticed that? And what does the other person say? Well, what you got to do is you need to shut up because you're going to get that person in trouble. So make sure that when you identify your executive caddies, they are the right individuals. They are not there to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what you need to hear. The question is if you are going to be open to accept the message. Some of us are not. Some of us have all kinds of excuses. Well, you were not there, Fernando, when this happened. That's why you don't understand. You don't have the context. You're not in my shoes. No, I get it. I get it. You may not have the right executive caddies. So, don't worry about that. I'm going to go fast. Don't worry. An executive caddy is even more important when you are close to the goal. You know why? Because it is at that point in time when we tend to mess up. True or false? You've worked the entire year and then you have this great idea in the last minute. And that's when you throw everything up in the game. A mentor, a coach, or a sponsor would tell you, hold on, it's not what you want to do. If they can actually get past the point of you accepting. Offering suggestions, ideas, and improvements, that's a good executive coach. Helping you picture success, suggest small trajectory changes. Serving as a catalyst, keeping you calm and focused, preventing you from doing a crucial mistake the last minute. Raise of hands. How many of you can recall a scenario where you could have used an executive caddy to hold you back and say, don't do that? Anyone? Maybe a phone call, maybe an email. You know how now emails have a delay? It's because it would have been easier for somebody to hold your hand and be like, don't hit send. You're going to regret it. This is what executive caddies do for you. Pitfalls. An executive caddy or a golf caddy is going to tell you, Fernando, before you swing, there's a sand trap over there, there's a mountain over here, the wind is coming this way, the grass is humid. They're going to tell you all kinds of things. The same way that an executive caddy is going to help you understand competing priorities, organization politics. Many of you inevitably tell me, Fernando, I don't like to play politics. To which I say, politics are going to play you. Do you understand that? Nobody asked you, Fernando, you think or John, do you think we should have politics? Nobody asked you. Frankly, nobody cared. Politics is part of the game. The question is if you know how to maneuver and navigate them. Financial trouble, these are pitfalls, market industry and uncertainty, lack of support, toxic relationships. How many of you have been meaning to vote somebody off your island, but you just don't get around to doing it? Yes or no? You know they're impacting your career and your life, but you don't do anything about it. Toxic relationships are something that you need to handle quickly. I'm not saying be negative about it, but you have to handle them. All of you, including myself, we all have a toxic relationship somewhere, true or false? That person that when the phone rings, you go like, ugh. But do we do anything about it? Nope. Competition and inequality. These are all pitfalls, sand traps, obstacles that an executive caddy is going to help you maneuver. Okay? Now, in your golf bag, or what I call it, in your executive golf bag, what should you have so you can develop your strategic relationships? Number one, an executive journal. Write down your top 5 individuals that you want to meet, your accomplishments, why are you unique and you stand out. Many a times I ask someone, before you start building your strategic network, your strategic relationships, why do you stand out? And they give me the standard answer. I'm a hard worker, Fernando. Well, gee, nobody else is a hard worker. I have integrity. I hope you do. I like money. I bet, because you're working to get a check. Identify what you stand out for. And feedback is all around you. Make sure that your story is airtight. Number 2, a network of trusted relationships. Have you heard of a power map? If you haven't heard of a power map, this is what many organizations do prior to engaging with a client. It works the same way for us. The way it works is the following. Imagine if you wanted to meet John. It doesn't matter who John is. Just say, for the sake of argument, you want to meet John. And you don't know how to get to John. What you do is a power map. Imagine a series of circles, bubbles, leading up to John. Bubble number 2 is Eric. And Eric is connected to John, but I don't know Eric. But I know Maria, and Maria is connected to Eric. And I also know, I don't know, Isabel, who's also connected to Maria and to Eric. Oh, and look at this, to John. Now, once you draw that power map, pay attention. I'm not talking about a organizational structure. It has nothing to do with titles. It has to do with people that know people. Now you start drawing the actual value of each connection. Between Eric and John, there is a -1. Think about it. Numbers between -3 to +3. -1 says, Eric does know John, but not in a good way. They don't seem to like each other, which means there is a connection. I'm not going to go that route. A +3 means there is a strong connection. So build a power map. Do your toxic relationships assessment, and build your personal board of directors. Work on your interpersonal skills. There's no other way to connect with people. You need to be comfortable having a conversation with them. An icebreaker. The art of small talk. Are we all good with that? I mean, if you're here, you've been identified as a high potential, so you must know how to connect with individuals. True or false? If you're still back of the room type of person trying to avoid eye contact and not connecting with someone, you better get good at that game. Because the person sitting next to you or behind you is an expert. Some of you in here are experts when it comes to connecting with other relationships. You need to develop that skill set. IQ, EQ, and social intelligence. We need to work on that as a group. This is going to open doors you don't even know exist. You have no idea that you're being measured for your EQ and your social intelligence. Because at some point in time, your resume, your cover letter gets put to the side, and they figure out who you are as an individual. As an individual. A mentor, a counselor, sponsor, which we talked about, and communication skills. Your communications game has to be an A+. Communication has to be A+. Public speaking, negotiating skills, persuasion, connecting, all of that comes into play for you to develop your strategic network. Questions, comments, concerns, or jokes? Nothing. This is all crystal clear. Okay, we're going to move on, but I have some time for questions. The law of the few from Malcolm Gladwell. Certain types of people who are unusually helpful at spreading ideas. Connectors, mavens, and salesmen. I always say the following. You need to have in your group of people a connector. You know who a connector is? The person that can connect you to anyone, even though they don't even know them. Do you know someone like that? We all have a tia, a cousin, primo. You're like, I don't know who they are. Who do you want to meet? You want to meet Maria? Give me 1 second. Let me just make this happen. Connectors are powerful individuals. If you don't have one, become one. Become a connector. You know why? Because everyone loves to have a connector in their group. That's the person you're going to send over. Like, yeah, we need to meet that person. Go. Like, you sick boy, sick, go. And they bring them back. Number 2, become or have someone which we call an information hub. Someone who knows about a little thing about everything. You know who I'm talking about? Maybe it's you. But they just happen to know every question to Jeopardy. Like, I know the answer to that. Why? Because that's another valuable person in your group. And if you are, because everyone wants someone that you can reach out to. And even though they don't know the answer, they can figure it out. And that creates for great relationships and connection points. Are you that person? Or do you have that person in your network? It's the question. No questions so far. Where, I can't see over here. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yes.
Come over here.
Introduce yourself because we're networking.
We're power working.
Oh, you can. My name is Yassi Murillo. I am from Citigroup. And you talked about making a connection with a person. In our organization, there's a political game to be played, and there's diplomacy. So oftentimes, we are not allowed to, let's say, email an individual directly and say, I want to meet you. Do you have 15 minutes for coffee? We have to go through our managers in order to make the connection. So how do you recommend that we manage that process when there's a gatekeeper?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Very powerful question. I don't know if you're going to like my answer, but very powerful question. Yes. Well, I'm going to give you an answer that works for sure. But there are gatekeepers. That's everywhere. But one of the reasons that there are gatekeepers, first we need to understand the reason behind it. And the reason behind it is if those individuals that you want to meet were answering every 10-minute conversation that people keep reaching out to them, they would never work. Number two, it's because when we reach out to those individuals, whether it's by email or not, we don't really have an objective of why I want to meet you. They know your objective, you need me. You see where I'm going with this? And I'm going to be as bluntly as possible. You need me. You need 10 minutes of me, but I don't know what the value is on the other side. So we need to start figuring out what value do we add to the other person or the audience that we want to meet. Now, I know I haven't told you how to do it, but these are the things that we have to figure out first. What value do I add? And value comes in many different shapes and forms. It doesn't necessarily have to be monetary. It could be silence. Has anyone been appreciative of somebody else for just being quiet? Or just me? I'm so glad you're just quiet. Value comes in different forms. So that's number two, right? Number three, now I get it. I'm not going to say the name of the company. I get it. They've given you a strict guideline to go by. Go through the manager. Well, not if I bump up into that with that person at the elevator. Like there was no time for me to go through the manager. They just happened to be there. So, I mean, what am I going to do? Not say anything? Number one, social event, community event, volunteer event, special projects that you can sign up for. All of them are going to put that person in front of you. And what are you going to say? I can't talk to you. I got to go to my... No, this is where you shine. This is why I am a huge fan of HACR. Because they're giving you the tools to understand. If you're going to continue to play the game by the same rules, you're never going to understand the rules that we nudge a bit. Just a bit. I remember as a consultant wanting to meet this particular individual. She was a senior VP. The gatekeeper, her assistant, would not let me through. This went on for months, but I did know that she liked Starbucks coffee. I did know that she was an early bird, and I did know that she got into that elevator at 7:15 a.m. every day. Guess who was in that elevator? Pure coincidence. I mean... Now, some of you may be thinking, Fernando, that's stalking. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm saying I happen to be there with Starbucks coffee. Do you guess if I got the meeting? Absolutely. Absolutely. But because I went outside the guidelines. I'm not asking you to break any rules. I'm asking you to put first your careers. Are you with me on this? Put your careers first. And that game is played differently, in a different setting, with different players, with different rules. Again, I'm not asking you to break rules. I'm asking you to maneuver around the politics. Any other? Is that good enough? Thank you. Questions, comments, concerns? No, don't.
Hola.
Hola, hola.
My name is Adriana. I work in human resources with Lowe's. And my question, you talked about not liking the term networking, correct? Mm-hmm. And using strategic relationships. I think that's the term you used. So my question to you is, how do you leverage your culture with non-Hispanic leaders when you try to build those strategic relationships? And what differences, or has it worked? What differences have you struggled with it? Or have you felt vulnerable at some point?
Perfect. Have I felt vulnerable? All the time. All the time. I'll start with a quick story. I remember too when I was called to the office, the principal's office, no, my manager, my partner at the time, and he said, Fernando, I'm going to give you some feedback. Don't take it the wrong way. You speak with your hands. You have too much energy. And I said, oh. And he goes, you need to tone it down a bit because it's distracting for a client who's the one signing the contracts and the paychecks. And I said, fine. For the next... True story. For the next 6 months, this was me. And I would just slightly smile. You know, that creepy smile. You're like... Fast forward 6 months, we are at a social event, social gathering. Truth be told, I had one too many drinks. I gotta say it. And the senior executive, she approached me and she said, Fernando, you haven't been yourself in a couple of months. And I said, well, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why. And I explained to her the feedback that I had received, and this was the answer. No, we like you. Your energy and what you brought to the table, we don't like your boss. And I said, oh. So for 6 months, I literally took a hit to my career because people were talking. That's not me. Right? So I start with that story to say, number one, you have to be authentic. But number two, you need to understand that I rarely talk about, you know, the Hispanic community versus the African American community. I talk about communication skills, understanding your audience. That's it. If your audience, I'll say this, you are not Hispanic leaders. Did you know that? You are leaders that happen to be Hispanics. Fair enough? That is a huge difference because now when people ask me, Fernando, how do I leverage my culture? Don't just yet. Understand your leadership style and the audience you're trying to connect with. Depending on them, you adjust and you maneuver. At some point in time, I'm going to use my hands because, hey, this is my people. We understand we're going to go telenovela style. Yeah? I have an opportunity to visit many countries, Ecuador, Colombia, Argentina, and what do? I trigger my Univision accent. Right? Because does that make me unauthentic? No, I'm just trying to connect with my audience. And some of the words that I say in Puerto Rico may offend somebody in Colombia. It's as simple as that. So I adjust. So my advice to all of you is, as Hispanics, bring that to life, but understand where the lines are. You can't just say, I'm going to flip it. In coaching, some people tell me, Fernando, I'm the type of person that tells it like it is. I'm a straight shooter. To which I say, well, maybe I don't like it. Maybe I don't like it. See, in your head, you're thinking, you need to adjust to me. And I'm bringing them back to reality saying, I don't need to adjust to you. You need something from me, so you better stop the I tell it like it is BS because I don't like it. Remember the 3 levels of resistance? I don't get it. I don't like it. I don't like you. You're pushing me into the third one. And what happens with the third one is when we don't like someone, we see the worst in them. We don't like the way they talk. We don't like the way they breathe. Have you ever been sitting next to someone and you look around and you go like, is that how you're going to eat your food? Come on. I'm not the only one. Have you ever looked at someone and said, is that how you're going to breathe? Seriously. So my point is, because you are leaders that happen to be Hispanic, understand all of the valuable assets that you have. How do you maneuver your communication styles? Listen, I'm not going to lie. If I have to bump up my accent just a bit more to make that connection, so be it. I'll lay out the thick accent. If I have to clean it up, I will clean it up. Does that make sense? Okay, so we have 3 minutes. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Fernando. Eric Mendoza, Toyota.
Eric.
So you mentioned toxic relationships. I can figure out how to get out of toxic relationships. Question that I have for you is, what kind of advice would you have for, similarly, let's say a mentorship that you start a regular check-in. How do you graciously back out of that when it's not going well?
Great question. Let me ask you this. Is that person the right mentor?
No?
Okay. Whose fault was it? Who selected that mentor?
Okay.
Done. So, no, thank you for participating. The reason I'm going there is when we talk about strategic relationships, when we talk about mentors, coaches, and sponsors, you need to be selective. It's not just, oh, they can be a mentor, let me go after. Oh, they're just a mentor. Some mentors don't even know how to be mentors. The reason I start with that phrasing is because a true mentor knows that the relationship is not forever. A true mentor knows that I'm here to help you. Of course, it's a two-way street and you're going to help me. But at some point in time, you may not need my services. You're not paying me for those services. It's okay. A true mentor will simply be okay with it. Hey, Eric, whenever you need me, I'm going to be here for you. Just reach out. Now, if we had meetings every week or every 2 weeks, stop them. Stop them. The problem is, and I sympathize with you, right? The problem is that we justify all kinds of excuses that we have to give to break away from that relationship as if it was a romantic relationship. How do I let them down? Are they going to hate me? Well, what if they do? You don't need them. Are you going to continue to waste your time? Please don't. Please don't. It starts by selecting the right mentors. And it starts by having the conversation with your mentors about how this is going to work out. You need to add value to them. They need to add value to you. Fair enough? Any other questions? Because we have a minute left. And I'm going to skip through this real quick. Don't worry, you haven't missed a thing. Don't worry. Any questions? All right. You as the caddy. We've talked about how are you going to develop your executive caddies, but are you being the right caddy? I'm going to ask the following. We are all concerned about moving the Hispanic agenda, making things happen, creating opportunities for ourselves. And I divide that into 2 tracks. I got 40 seconds, I'm going to make it count. I think about it in 2 tracks. Track number 1 are the individuals that are doing this at a large scale. HACR, your organizational human resources, your ERGs, right? There's that track, that it's a train that it's moving. Some people are just waiting to benefit from the outcomes of that track. And that's okay. But I would like to encourage all of you to think about track number 2, which is what are you doing about it? So, raise of hands, how many of you today would have 5 Hispanic leaders to recommend to your organization for a job or a leadership position? 5, not 3, not 2, not 1, 5. If you're not raising your hand, you need to get on with the program. You need to make or do your part to raise the community. You need to connect, become a connector. You need to sponsor. Who are you sponsoring? And if you're sponsoring no one, you're making a big mistake. Sponsor someone. And I will finish with the following. Always remember, when it comes to strategic relationships, do you want to be right or do you want to win? And I'm hoping the answer is I want to win, Fernando. And if so, pay attention to all the tips that I gave you today. With that, I thank you very much for having me, and I will stick around for a little bit if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Fernando. Can we give him another round of applause? This was such a treat.